over to the F1 visa session. I might as well get started. I don't know if you want to say anything to introduce Elyem, but to introduce the session, but I'll just get started then.
Just go ahead. Thank you, Caroline.
Yeah, great. So welcome. My name is Caroline, and I'll be talking about applying for the F1 visa. And I'll be going over a little bit about the visa, the process for applying, and then kind of what this is looking like given the current, COVID-19 situation, and how that is affecting visa applications and the college process. So first we'll do an introduction so I can get to know who is here in the call and make sure I can cater this presentation to the members of our call. Then I'll go over an overview of the F1 visa, and that includes limitations of the visa and opportunities, kind of like benefits of the visa. Then I'll talk about how to apply for the F1 visa, the documents you might need, and some important tips. And then I'll talk more about visa applications in COVID-19 and how this has been affecting the process. And we'll have time for questions at the end. If you do have a question that pertains directly to a slide, you can feel free to ask the question in the chat, but otherwise you can feel free to leave questions to the end of our session. All right, so I'd love to hear more about who is here today. It looks like we have a pretty small group. So I'd love to go around and perhaps hear from each of you, where you're calling from and what your experience is with US higher education. Some examples of where you might be at are you might be attending college this fall. Maybe you're working on college applications. You might be learning just more about US colleges. You might have not yet started the college search. Or if you're already in college and you're interested in applying to grad schools in the US. So I would love to hear from each of you kind of where you're calling from and what your experience with US higher education is. Elyem, I'm not sure what order we can have people start in, but otherwise I can just kind of call.
Yeah, I mean, I'd also be happy to call people out, but if you'd like to, that's great.
Well, I actually can't see the participants.
Okay.
I can only see the chat, so it'd be great if you could go.
Yeah, so Luisa, would you like to get started just to make sure?
I'm calling from Greece, and I just started applying. I started with the application process, so I've started thinking about essay topics and stuff like that.
Awesome. All right, thank you.
Mawali, would you like to, sorry, there's a motorbike outside my house. Mawali, would you like to go next?
Yes, please. I'm currently working on my college applications. Thank you.
Awesome. Mirta?
Yeah, I'm from the Netherlands, and I'm just learning about US colleges. I will be applying to universities next year, and I only visited one university in the United States.
Awesome. Thank you. And Joanna, I saved you for last. It's good to hear you. I'm not sure. Joanna, can you hear us?
Yeah, I think I have connection problems, but yeah, I can hear you now.
Amazing.
So I'm Ioana and I'm from Bulgaria, and I will be a junior next year, but like here we do everything a year earlier, so I already got started on the preparing my resume and the application and everything. So yeah.
Amazing.
Awesome. Thanks so much. That'll actually answer our next question as well about what country are you from. So we've already done that. And it's great to know where you're all at in the process so that I can kind of make sure this information is relevant to where you're at in the college search. I would also love to know, maybe you can raise your hand. Have anyone ever applied for a visa for the US? You could use the little like hand raising button or a thumbs up. Okay. See, a few of you have done have applied for a visa in the US. Has anyone applied for another country, like a visa to a different country? Okay. Some of you have also done that. And the rest of you have seemingly either, gone to the US on maybe the ESTA program, or have not yet applied for a visa. Okay, so just a little bit about myself. My name is Caroline, and again, I am an international student advisor at UC Berkeley. This is one of the University of California campuses, and we're near San Francisco. UC Berkeley has a student body, maybe in all the programs combined, about 40,000 students, maybe a little bit less. And many of those programs have a huge international population. So I work probably with around 7,000 international students here. And it's a very big university, but my actual college experience as a student has been at very small schools. I went to a private college for my master's program in international education management, and then got my bachelor's at Colby College, which is a small college in Maine. So I've been all over the map of the US. All right, so we'll start to do an overview of the F1 visa. I'll be going over what this visa kind of means for you as a as a student attending college in the US. So the F1 visa, all non-immigrant visitors are required to have a valid visa, except Canadians, in their passport to be allowed entry into the United States. Now, you might already know this because you've come to the US, so you needed some sort of visa in your passport or a visa waiver program. The F1 visa allows you to attend a US college or university, and it's the most common student visa. There are a few other visa types that you can come to the US and study with, including the J visa, or the O visa, and those are less common. If you're eligible for them, your sponsoring company might tell you that, but most students go through the F1 visa. And you can apply for the F1 visa after getting admitted to a US college or university and deciding where to attend. So you actually apply for the visa already knowing where you will at least begin attending school. So for example, if you were going to go to a community college first and then maybe transfer later, you would apply based on whatever school you're planning to go to at first. All right, so some further information about this visa and what you can kind of do with a visa is that you can attend a US college or university and enroll in classes full-time. Because this is a student visa, it means you must be a full-time student while you're on the visa. You cannot work full-time and attend classes only part-time. That's one of the restrictions of the visa. You need to be a full-time student. You can enter the US at most 30 days before your program starts. And you need to continue to enroll each semester. If you take a semester off, and it's less than 5 months, you won't have to get a new visa. But if you take longer time off, many students will maybe take a year off in the middle of their program, you may need to reapply for the visa again. So primarily, just check in with your school if you ever were planning on taking a gap year. In addition, on an F1 visa, you can transfer to another college or university. So if you start to attend a school for 2 years and you decide you might want to go somewhere else, or you think your major wants to change and a different school has better setup for that, you can transfer to another college or university and you don't have to get a new visa. You can just keep the same one. Another thing you could do, hey, Elian, you have a question?
Yes, so I someone messaged me a question about this actually, and so they're wondering, they applied for fall 2020, and they're waitlisted at a few places that they would, and they're accepted at a couple places as well, and so they're wondering if they go ahead with the visa process for one of the places where they were admitted, and then they got off the wait list halfway through the summer, whether they would be able to transfer then, or whether you can only, I think this is what they said anyway, or whether you can only transfer once you have begun your studies. Does that make sense? Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah. The biggest thing is that when you enter the US, you'll enter with an I-20 and with a visa for the school you will attend. Now, since you're currently not sure where you'll go, it's currently the summer, if you start the application process with one school and then change your mind because you get off the wait list a little bit later, you can make that shift before you enter the US and before the semester begins. And you'll just have to communicate with your school. Once you do enter the US with the I-20 document, with that visa, you can't suddenly change schools at that particular time. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I will let them know. Thank you so much.
Perfect, thanks. Okay, so you can transfer. You can also work on campus with an F1 visa throughout your whole program. So you can work part-time during the academic year on campus and full-time during school vacations like the summer vacation. On campus means that you can work in anything that serves the campus community, which might include a library, as a teaching assistant for classes. When I was a student, I worked in doing research for a professor. Many students in our school also, you can work in like the campus cafeteria. So there's lots of options for that. And then you can also work off campus. You can work off campus in jobs related to your major after 1 year of attending the school. This is a great benefit of the F1 visa. It allows you to get authorization to work off campus. And after graduation, you can be eligible to work as well. You will actually apply to USCIS, a large governing body. It's the US Citizen and Immigration Services. And after graduation, you can work for 1 to 3 years on the F1 visa. It depends on your major. So that's a really awesome benefit as well. We'll go into how to apply for the F1 visa. And that starts with gaining admission to a college or university and confirming your attendance. So you'll want to confirm your attendance with whatever school you're going to attend, and that school will issue you a document called the Form I-20. The I-20 is a piece of paper that's it's actually 3 pages, and it has all the information about your program. It also gives you a number, and that number will be attached to the visa you end up getting. You'll go online once you get the I-20 and pay the CVIS fee of $350 online. This is a required fee that you need to pay every time you get an F1 visa in the US. This fee used to be $200 until about 9 months ago, and frustratingly has recently increased to $350. Then you need to make an appointment at your local US embassy or consulate, and you can find out where your nearest embassy or consulate is online, and you fill out the DS-160. This is an online visa application. It actually is the same application for many different kinds of visas, but you'll be applying for the F1 visa. Now, when you go to your visa appointment, the wait time will depend on your country and your consulate specifically. In times that aren't COVID-19, you can look online and see how long it will take you to get an appointment. Some countries in Europe maybe have 5 to 12 days to get an appointment, whereas India and China, it may be months. So just make sure you look online to see how long it might take you to get the appointment. And then when you do, what you'll need to bring with you are some documents, including your passport, which you always need to have valid at least 6 months into the future. financial evidence of 1 year, 1 academic year of tuition, fees, and living expenses. This will vary based on your school. And financial evidence can be personal, it can be family or sponsor, or if you're being funded by your employer, government, scholarship program, something like that, you'll just need to bring evidence of funding. Proof of admission to the college or university, the Form I-20. You'll bring the receipt of your SEVIS fee, your DS-160 visa application and fee. And the last one is something you may not have seen before, but you need to show proof of non-immigrant intent. This, for undergraduate students, is pretty straightforward. It's just showing that, you know, you have family who has property or employment and a business in your home country. So if you say, oh, well, you know, I'm not going to immigrate to the US forever, is essentially what they want to see, that your intention is to study and then return to your home country after you finish your time in the US or after you finish your program and after you finish your 1 to 3 years of work, that you will eventually return to your home country. For graduate students, this sometimes means proving that you have family or property in the home country too. Yes, you have a question, Elia?
Could I also ask a question about this?
Yeah.
So some people sometimes I think get confused, right? Because they say, well, in my college application, I want to speak about how, like, I want to show that I'm really passionate about the US and that's where I want to live and that's where I want to study. But then at the embassy, I have to be like, I like the US, but that's not where I want to live. And so I think sometimes people wonder, like, how, like, can you just show those two different sides? Like, will the embassy people know that you told your college that you're in love with the US, and like just how to navigate that duality, I guess?
Yeah, that's a very good question. The way in which you want to present your interest in coming to the US will be different in your application to the college and the US consulate, and they don't interact with each other at all. So if you demonstrate your reasons for wanting to study and maybe you do want to live in the US forever, that's great, that's okay. You can prove that in your college application, but when you are trying to get the F1 visa, one of the requirements is to prove that you do not plan on permanently moving to the US. So honestly, even if you do plan on doing that, you need to prove for F1 visa purposes that you do not, and also demonstrate in the interview that, you know, yeah, the US is fine, but I plan on coming back afterwards. And I definitely would say that, you know, demonstrating your connections to your home country is the best way to do that.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, and just to talk a little bit about how visa applications have differed in COVID-19, currently visa offices worldwide are closed. This means there is a huge backlog of cases. There are students who had appointments that have been canceled, and you can't make new ones. Limited embassies are allowing appointments for July, August, and September in some countries, but nobody has made an official designation of when they're opening. The earliest possible appointments seem to be in China right now, but we're also not sure whether they'll actually end up happening. So this makes visas really challenging at this time because it's not certain when you'll be able to get an appointment. But fortunately, a lot of policies about being a student in the US have shifted based on how challenging it is to get a visa right now. So you can still apply, for a, I just made all my participants go away. Okay, wonderful. You can still apply for a visa, you can submit fees, and you can get the Form I-20 document from your school. So you can begin the process, but appointments at this time are not possible. But if you are unable to get a visa by the start of your classes in the fall semester, you can still attend classes online from your home country. This does not require a visa, and this is what many schools have already decided will be happening, or they're soon going to kind of adapt a hybrid model. For example, UC Berkeley will be a hybrid model for the fall. So if students cannot make it to the US because they can't get a visa appointment, they can attend classes from their home country full-time, and all the same classes as students in the US would. And if students are in the US, they can also attend in person based on what guidelines are issued at that time. So this makes it a little bit easier. You can still take classes in the US, and the fact that you can't get a visa right now won't impact your student status. But many students are choosing to kind of wait another year to maybe do the visa application process and come to the US, because it'll be very challenging, especially I think in proving that it's financially worth it to pay full price to stay and do virtual online learning. But contact your school for further details. If you are specifically looking at one school and going this fall, I would contact them to see where they're at in the process of deciding about what happens in the fall. All right, great. I'm happy to take any questions. You can feel free to put a question in the chat box. You can also just raise your hand. Eliam and I can call on you to ask a question via video as well.
Joanna,
Right.
would you like to ask a question?
Yeah, I have a question. So, if I have two diplomas and one is from my country, like both are from my country, but one is like a Bulgarian one and the other one is an American one, which one should I apply to the US?
Do you mean which, like it's a high school diploma that you would use as part of your application?
Yeah, which of the two, because I can't apply with both. So which one should I choose?
I think it would depend on what is required by the school of your choosing. If the diplomas both showcase where you ended your schooling and you have like a dual degree, perhaps whichever one demonstrates, if the school requires that you've taken classes, you know, in English, for example, then you don't have to submit your TOEFL score. That might be the best option for you. Otherwise, if the Bulgarian one does demonstrate where you attended school and perhaps is just in a different language, you may be able to submit that along with a translation as well. I think that might depend specifically on the requirements of the school.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Yeah. Does anyone else have questions? Anything about college in the US maybe too? Not just boring visas.
Yeah, I wonder if anyone has, because most of you guys were there yesterday, maybe you've had the chance to like think over the whole application process, and I think it'd be super cool to get Caroline's input on those questions as well, because it's always good to have various perspectives. But I wonder as well, so another question that someone submitted beforehand, Caroline, is that, so you said that people need to prove that they have enough money to pay tuition for a year. Oh, actually, Mawali asked a question, but I may just finish mine. And so, and I think this person was wondering, does that mean that I have, like, perhaps, like, what if, like, maybe a relative or some like family friend has the money to show to say that they would support me, although that may not actually be how I end up paying for school? Can that be used as proof of being able to afford the year?
Absolutely. And when you need to show proof of funding for one academic year, it usually means 2 semesters. And this can be shown through, the different kind of options include personal funds, also includes sponsor funds. So if you're being sponsored by someone that's not your family, or family support. If you are showing funding from someone that's not your own name, you might need to provide a document that, like a letter stating the relationship between you and your sponsor. So that might be, you know, a letter written by a family member stating the relationship between you two that's has a signature to verify that. And then in addition, if your college or university is giving you any grants or scholarships, you can use those as proof of funding as well. They'll probably issue you an official letter showing you exactly how much they're offering you in scholarship, and you can use that as proof of funding as well.
Thank you. I think Mawali also has a question. Mawali, I think if you just want to say it out loud, that's totally fine.
Well, I forgot to say my nationality earlier. I'm Barbadian. My question is there a limit on the number of hours you can work? And also, is there a limit on the amount you can make while working?
Yeah, so I'd love to elaborate on that. And I went back to the slide that has some more information about what you can do on the F1 visa. So you can work on campus part-time during the academic year. Part-time is defined as 20 hours a week or less. So that's how many hours you can work during the academic year. During school vacations like winter vacation or summer break, you can work full-time, and this actually has no restriction. You can work as many hours as you can kind of physically handle. I guess I wouldn't recommend, you know, foregoing sleep to work that often, but there's no limit on summer work. So you can be working on campus as many hours as you're able to get. And then in off-campus work, the restrictions are the same. So you can work 20 hours a week or fewer off campus if you obtain authorization for that after a year of attending the school. And then off campus applies with the same policy as the one above. During the summer or school vacations, you can work full-time off campus. You do have to get authorization from your school for all off-campus work, but it's a pretty easy process of just showing how your job is related to your major. The main restriction that this holds is because the F1 visa is tied to your status as a student, your work off campus must be related to your major. So this does mean that students on the F1 visa would not qualify to work at Starbucks, for example, or in a restaurant that's not on your campus itself. And it prioritizes work within your major. There's no limit on the amount of money you can make. There's no restriction there. You will have to, perhaps your school might ask you how much money you make in order to get authorization, but you can accept work that is paid or unpaid throughout your time on an F1 visa.
I have a follow-up on that actually. So imagine that a college gives you a scholarship based on your need, and they determine that your need is whatever, like $50,000, and they give you all that money, but then you get a summer job during the summer that's really well paid. And so could that change? Could that perhaps change the amounts of money that the school may give you, or should people take that into consideration when accepting a very lucrative job that pays a lot of money?
Honestly, in my experience, there hasn't been an interaction between scholarships given to students and them making money during the summer or during the school year as well. Generally, US students sometimes get financial aid that includes, you know, we'll give you this much money and you're required to have a job on campus. Sometimes the package includes that. For international students, it's not very common unless you're getting like a PhD. But generally, if you're given a scholarship and it doesn't have any sort of clause about working on campus, you can be able to accept a scholarship and be working on campus and not worry about those interacting.
Thank you. Thanks. It looks like we have a couple of people who were trying to join, but they had connection issues, and so that's
Oh no.
too bad. Yeah. Mhm. Perhaps, Caroline, could you just maybe one last question from me? Like, what's a mistake that you see people make often, and that could be easily solved if people knew not to make it, if that happens?
Yeah, I think honestly, for things like a visa application, there's a lot of deadlines that go on in the process. And one of them, is setting up an appointment that allows you enough time to get the actual visa before your school begins. That's one of the biggest errors, is students waiting too long to kind of get everything started, get their documents together, figure out where they're going to go to school, and following through on the process. Just kind of getting organized. And, if you're going to be attending full-time college and you've just graduated from high school and you're also on this call, because I know the Camp Rising Sun works with incredible students, you probably have some time management skills. And I would recommend applying those to this process, even though it's summer and maybe you don't want to work in creating a calendar to organize the deadlines and fees associated with the visa process. It is really important. And, visa delays can happen when students don't have their fees together, when they don't have all the required documents. And if something goes wrong during an appointment, it may be months before you can get another appointment. So really just making sure that you've done your research, you have everything together, and you know your deadlines.
Amazing. Thank you. Thanks.
You're welcome. And if anyone else comes up with any questions in the next few minutes, feel free to chat them. But otherwise, I'm sure we can be available for students to contact after the call as well.
Yes, definitely. And thank you so much for sharing your knowledge about the visa process. I know that for you guys in the call right now, a lot of these things may seem like far away, but we just want to make sure that you have heard about them, that you know what they are, and that when the moment comes to apply, that you have a better understanding of what it is that you have to do, and that you can refer back to these slides and to this presentation to make sure that you can navigate that process more easily.
And I'll add one additional thing. At every school, every college and university in the US, there is an international office. Sometimes it has, maybe a different name, the Global Education Office, the International Working Group, or anything. There is an office on campus whose job is to help international students come to the US on student visas and work with them throughout their time. So there is a contact at each school, and if you ever have questions, you can always reach out to your school's international office for them to help you along the way.
Yeah, definitely. And I would just add that maybe even before you've been admitted, like if that's a school you're interested in, you should also feel free to reach out to them, and they will be as helpful and as great as Caroline has been today. And I'm sure they will give you all the information that you need, even when you're just considering applying for a school. And so, Joanna, to your question at the beginning, like perhaps if there's a college that you have in mind, you could reach out to them specifically and say, hey, I have a dual diploma, I have this and I have this, like, would you let me know what would be most beneficial for me to apply with? As well as perhaps check in with the teachers in your school, because if you go to an international school, they may also have expertise in the subjects and could advise you, I imagine.
Great advice. Thanks, Lilian.
No problem. You're welcome, Joanna. Cool. So, do people have any more questions or any more things that they'd like to ask Caroline today? Cool. Well, Mhm. I'm not sure if anyone maybe typing away in the chat frantically before we say goodbye. I think it may not be the case. Yeah, thank you so much, Caroline, for sharing your knowledge with us today once more. I don't know if you have any parting thoughts or things you'd like to leave the people who may listen to this call later with.
Sure. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm really happy to share my knowledge in working with international students. And really, I'd just love to reiterate, despite what you may have heard in the media or from the leadership of the United States, we really do want students to come to the US, experience the college system here and the college experience, and really thrive in the international community that's formed on college campuses. So I really encourage you to check out applying to colleges in the US. Despite what you may hear, we are a welcoming place that really does foster, intercultural friendships and education. And I really just want to reiterate that we really, despite the maybe complicated visa process, you can get here and study here and achieve your academic dreams.
Thank you. That's a beautiful note to end on. I would also say, sorry for throwing more thoughts in, but even if you don't want to go to the US to study for your whole college degree, you can always go as a exchange student, as a study abroad student, for a year, for a semester. And so there's a different visa for that, but the process is fairly similar. And so, yeah, just even if going to the US doesn't work out for you for the 4 years, just keep it in the back of your mind if that's something that would interest you farther along the line. And maybe a bit of a shameless plug for Virtual College Week. So tomorrow and Thursday, we are going to be speaking about scholarship opportunities. And then on Friday, we have a session on how to ask for help, which is our way of saying networking. And we hope that you'll join us for those. Perhaps I think the Friday one is particularly cool because you learn how to find CRS alums that may be in the colleges that you want to go to or in the fields that you may want to work in, and how to reach out to them and how to make the most of those connections. So yeah, thank you so much again. And perhaps we should say goodbye.
Sounds good. Thank you again, Elia. Happy to share.
Yes, thank you so much.
It was great to meet all of you also on the call. Glad to virtually meet you all.
Yeah, thank you, Mirta and Mawali and Joanna. Have a good evening, some of you. Yeah, it's 10 p.m. for Mirta and Joanna, at least, I think. So, amazing. You're welcome, Mawali. Bye, guys.